Hello, this is Steve Long. I'm going to talk about the difference in using traditional natural stucco finishes as opposed to the relatively new synthetic stucco finishes on a hard coat stucco system. Of course, most of my videos deal with the water-resistant barrier, the building paper or the house wrap, along with the Keen rain screen, which is there for drainage and ventilation, and lath and weave screeds and easy bead used as a system. Due to a lot of the changes that have happened in the building envelope. But there's a lot of changes in the actual finish systems as well, so we need to talk about that a little bit. When we talk about the finish, that's the last coat, the last part of the stucco system that we see that gives it the aesthetic look, the pleasing look that is seen from the curbside. And that final finish coat can be done a number of ways. This is typically called a sand finish or a smooth finish. Or we can also have a lace or dash finish, different names. Also a knockdown finish. Before we take a real close look at the finish coat, let's take a look at the entire wall system. So by code, over wire lath, we need a 3-coat system: a scratch, a brown, and a finish. The scratch is mortar or plaster that's applied first. It's allowed 48 hours to cure and shrink, and so it shrinks, and if we get any hairline cracks, they occur at that time. The brown coat is then applied and allowed 7 days to cure and shrink. Again, any shrinkage cracks occur. And then the theory is the finish coat goes on last, and at that point, no shrinkage cracks should reflect through. Mixing materials for mortar and plaster for scratch and brown is like mixing a cake. There are quite a few mix designs. One typical mix design for scratch and brown is 1 part cement, 3/4 part lime, and 2 to 4 parts sand. These ingredients are then mixed with water in a mortar mixer. In this case, we poured it from the mortar mixer into the wheelbarrow, and our applicator is putting it in the buckets so they can get over to the scaffolding and put it right onto the hawk and trowel. And then here we go. Our scratch coat goes on first, right onto the lath. And it's called a scratch because as it starts to set, we come over and we put a scratch in it to key the next coat right into it. And after a 2-day, 48-hour cure, we put our brown coat on top of the scratch. That's our second coat. And then we're going to end up smoothing it out at the end. So before we get to the finished coat, let's talk about the two different ones, natural stucco and synthetic. Natural stucco finish. Originally we started with lime, just a lime mixed thousands of years ago. Last 100 years, we've gravitated to a mixture of cement, sand, and lime, all inorganic natural materials. Pros and cons. Natural stucco is less expensive, can last 50 to 100 years, low maintenance, easy to texture, breathable, allows vapor transmission to help drying out of the wall. It's got a proven track record over 100 years. Cons, color, can lighten or darken depending on the water ratio, so you're never going to get the exact color. It's a natural product. Because it shrinks, it can crack more easily. So these are two of the cons that are often cited with this type of finish. Before we look at synthetics, let's take a look at how they're mixed. Natural stucco finish is typically mixed in a mortar mixer. The synthetic, which is an acrylic, is usually mixed in a bucket with a paddle mixer, much like paint. Synthetic stucco finish systems originally came from Europe to the United States in the form of an EIFS system, exterior insulated foam finish systems with a synthetic stucco used over top of it, began to be used in hard coat stucco with lath in larger volumes in the U.S. in about the mid to late 90s. It is an acrylic, much like a paint, mixed with aggregate sand to give it texture. Pros and cons of a synthetic finish. Pros: flexible material which helps reduce cracking. Color uniformity, somewhat better uniformity than natural finish. Has some water resistance. Due to the polymers in the mix, it's not waterproof, but it's more water resistant than natural finish. Cons: costs more, less permeable, which can affect the ability to dry to the exterior or interior. UV will eventually break the acrylic down and it will have to be coated again with either the same material or a paint coating that could affect its permeability. It's got a shorter track record in the U.S. over wood construction, and it's not as easy to texture as natural finish coat. Let's see how they both go on. First, we run the stucco over top of the brown coat, giving us a smooth surface. Then, once it's sufficiently rigid and sets up, we can come back and texture it. And we can texture it in a number of different ways to create a texture finish. And regarding maintenance, natural stucco, years later we can apply a water repellent to stop moisture from getting into the wall. It'll set up, it'll breathe. Siloxane PD is a great one. Breathable, natural, and it is water resistant. Synthetic stucco is a little bit different. We're either going to have to recoat it after so many years, and it could be 20 years, it could be more, or we're going to have to go back over it with a paint or a coating to maintain it or keep it water resistant. Now we understand the two different finish coats. They're both here to stay, and both benefit from moisture management systems such as Amico Easy Bead to deflect bulk water, Keen Rain Screen to allow for drainage and drying of the wall, and Amico Weep Screen to allow water to exit the wall.